So what exactly makes a television masterpiece? Is it the razor-sharp writing, the phenomenal acting, the jaw-dropping cinematography, or is it maybe how a show forces us to look squarely in the mirror? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're putting one of television's absolute greatest achievements under the microscope to uncover the hidden gears turning behind the scenes. We are deconstructing the brilliance of Breaking Bad. We're going to pry open the creator's toolbox, zooming all the way in on those tiny micro details, like literally down to the specific color of a character's shirt, and then pull all the way back out to look at the macro execution of what is arguably the greatest single hour of television ever produced. If you think you already know Walter White's world inside and out, well, get ready to see it through a completely new lens. All right, here is our roadmap for today. First, decoding the visual palette, then the Skylar White backlash, and finally, anatomy of a masterpiece. Let's jump into Section 1, decoding the visual palette, the secret language of color. Okay, so showrunner Vince Gilligan is legendary for his absolute obsession with tiny details. I mean, he actually held entire production meetings just to assign specific color palettes to characters. And diehard fans picked up on this pretty quickly, developing what they call the color wheel theory. Take the color yellow, for example. In the early days, Walter White wears a lot of this drab, boring beige, but his yellow clothing is actually hidden underneath it. It's this brilliant subconscious cue suggesting his criminal tendencies are just bubbling right beneath the surface, because in this show, yellow is the color of the meth business. Think about Gus Fring's uniforms at Los Pollos Hermanos, or Walt and Jesse's hazmat suits. Whenever you see yellow, it literally screams caution, cowardice, and ultimately danger. And this creates some absolutely incredible visual tension. Let's look at the extremes. On one side, you have Skylar White. Her signature color is blue, which represents purity, loyalty, and this really deep-rooted sadness. But opposite her, you've got Jesse Pinkman, rocking these eye-popping reds and yellows that just scream brashness and the incredibly dangerous world of drug dealing. There is this one specific scene that totally nails this clash. Skylar goes to Jesse's house to confront him while she's pregnant. She's wearing this soft, light blue top right over her belly, really emphasizing that purity, while Jesse is literally dragging a dead body inside wearing a bright, baggy red hoodie. I mean, the contrast there absolutely could not be starker. So you might be wondering, where does Walter White fit into all this? Well, his signature color actually becomes green. Now, green represents greed, it represents money, and it tracks his growth into this tyrannical kingpin. But here is the real aha moment. What happens when you mix blue and yellow? You get green. It turns out primary school art class is actually the key to understanding a cartel kingpin. Walt sits perfectly on the color wheel right between the pure nature of his family, represented by Skylar's blue, and the dangerous methamphetamine trade, represented by Jesse's yellow. Walt's wardrobe is visual proof that he's completely torn between these two incredibly conflicting worlds. And this color clash doesn't stop there. It extends right over to Hank Schrader. If you look at a color wheel, you'll see that orange sits directly opposite to green. And what does Hank consistently wear? Orange. It symbolizes justice, humor, a really grounded nature, and, sometimes some pretty fiery anger. He is the law enforcement officer genuinely trying to do good, standing in direct visual opposition to Walt's green wardrobe of illegal selfishness and greed. The costume design here isn't just clothing, folks. It's literally a subconscious map of the character's loyalties and conflicts. All right, let's pivot to Section 2, the Skylar White backlash, an audience mirror. So we're moving from the visual design inside the show to how the real-world audience actually reacted to it, and this is fascinating. Researchers Joke Hermes and Leonie Stoet from the University of Amsterdam actually analyzed hundreds of Reddit threads to investigate the intense and honestly often vitriolic backlash directed at Skylar White. Because as it turns out, analyzing how audiences talk about fictional characters reveals an incredible amount about modern media consumption and society as a whole. One of the key concepts these researchers identified is something called the composite celebrity. This basically happens when fans completely blur the lines between fiction and reality. In these audience discussions, the fictional character of Skylar White and the real-world actor Anna Gunn were just morphed into a single entity. Fans were literally holding the real-life actor personally accountable for the scripted actions of the character she was playing. It's a really jarring side of celebrity culture where the barrier between a professional just doing their job and the role they play entirely dissolves. The researchers actually broke down these Reddit discussions into 3 distinct lenses. First up is savvy viewing, where fans were analytically praising or critiquing the script writing. acknowledging that Skylar was an obstacle completely necessary for the plot to work. Second is moral realism. This is where viewers judge the fictional characters as if they were actual, real people living down the street. Here, some fans realistically defended Skylar's impossible situation, while others heavily condemned her for not standing by her husband or for cheating on Walt, which the researchers noted reflects deeply ingrained gender ideologies. And finally, there's public shaming. This is where people use the logic of social media to launch direct, personal attacks at that composite celebrity of Skylar and Anna Gunn. It got so intense that Anna Gunn herself actually wrote a very brave op-ed in the New York Times responding to all this online vitriol. She noted, and I quote, "My character has become a flashpoint for many people's feelings about strong, non-submissive, ill-treated women." The hatred aimed at her character really acted as a mirror, illuminating some of the darker corners of our society's expectations regarding gender, and specifically how viewers react to complex female characters inside of male-centered dramas. Okay, moving on to our final section. Section 3, Anatomy of a Masterpiece. Ozymandias. All of this visual tension and these incredible character dynamics ultimately culminated in the series' defining hour. Written by Moira Walley-Beckett and directed by Rian Johnson, the episode Ozymandias drew a massive 6.4 million viewers right upon its premiere. Why? Because it ruthlessly pays off literally every storyline that had been building since the pilot episode. We get the incredibly dignified, tragic death of Hank Schrader, and we watch as the world Walter White built is physically and emotionally shattered. Actually, to really emphasize this, the director used a brilliant practical trick with puzzle pieces covered in dirt to make the ground physically shatter beneath Walt when he collapses in total despair. Even the episode's title is brilliant. It directly refers to Percy Bysshe Shelley's famous poem about the crumbling legacy of the great pharaoh Ramesses II. And the episode just beautifully parallels the poem. Just like the colossal wreck of the king's statue lying out there in a barren desert, Walter White's tyrannical aspirations and his immense hubris result in the total destruction of his empire and the permanent loss of his family. He is literally left rolling a single barrel of money through an unchanging, completely indifferent desert landscape. Now, the emotional climax of the episode features a fiercely debated phone call between Walt and Skylar. Fans instantly started arguing about this. Was Walt's vicious rage on the phone genuine? Or was it a calculated, selfless ploy because he knew the police were listening to exonerate Skylar? Well, the writer actually intended it as a ploy to help audiences sympathize with Skylar, but critics have noted that this scene is really a trap for the audience. It forces us to examine our own relationship with the show. Depending on how you interpret his words in that moment, it reveals whether you ultimately view Skylar as a pure victim or as a villain. And that intense viewer passion, that is exactly what fueled this episode's completely chaotic legacy. For an unbelievable 13 years, Ozymandias held a flawless 10.0 rating on IMDb with hundreds of thousands of votes. But in February 2026, it finally lost that perfect score. And the reason why is wild. It got caught in a crossfire review bombing war with fans of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Fans literally weaponized one-star reviews just to protect their own favorite show's top spot on the charts. Is it petty? Maybe a little. Is it fascinating? Absolutely. So, I want to leave you with a thought. Knowing what we know now about the subconscious cues of color, the sociological ways we judge characters, and the poetic narrative traps built by these writers, how do your own biases shape the way you watch television? The next time you press play on a show you love, maybe look just a little bit closer, because you might just find that the real masterpiece is staring right back at you.